The inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Just think about it. We're in an age when we're trying to get people to accept their duties as parents. And now we have these couples where one of them is saying, hello, I am a parent. Sue me for child support. Call me when my kid gets in trouble. Call me when my kid's truant. And Ohio is saying, no, no, no. We won't let you take on those responsibilities. That's absurd.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. At the moment, the intersection of gay rights and marriage presents a fascinating case study of the intersection of the American legal and political systems, as well as the roles of the federal Constitution, state constitutions, and laws made by state and local governments. At the moment, Ohio and Cincinnati are at the center of one part of the debate. This last week, a federal judge ruled in the case of 4 local couples asking that their marriages in other states be recognized when it comes to joint responsibility for children. Local 12 reporter Larry Davis prepared this report just before the ruling.
As some of their children played nearby, 4 same-sex couples, 3 of whom are expecting babies in June, explain why they are taking their cases to court. In the suit, they explain how they want to be treated the same as married opposite-sex couples who have the names of both parents on birth certificates. In Ohio, in the case of same-sex couples, only the name of one parent is allowed. The couples claim the treatment is not equal and unconstitutional.
We're having a baby boy in June. We plan on, putting him in school, and I don't want to be recognized as a stranger in the state of Ohio. If my wife is not available, then I want to be recognized as a second mother.
The plaintiffs are being represented by attorney Al Gerhardstein, who filed suit last year on behalf of James Obergfell and John Arthur. Obergfell wanted to be listed as the surviving spouse on Arthur's death certificate. The couple married in Maryland before Arthur died from ALS. A federal court ruled in the couple's favor. Pam and Nicole York-Smith are the parents of a 3-year-old boy. Only Nicole's name is on his birth certificate.
With me not listed on that birth certificate, I can't apply for Social Security card for him. I couldn't apply for a passport for him. It's hard to enroll him in school. She has to be there. If there's a medical emergency, I have to carry around a packet of paperwork this thick.
The couples filing this suit say same-sex marriages should be granted the same status as those of the opposite sex.
When you're looking at heterosexual couples that go through the same exact situation, using artificial insemination and using a donor, they're able to get that non-bio father's name on the birth certificate. How are we any different? We're married.
To talk about where we are and what is next, I am joined this morning by Al Gerhardstein. Mr. Gerhardstein is a partner at Gerhardstein & Branch, a public interest law firm that says it is committed to using the law to help those at the margins of power. Their clients are often victims of discrimination, mistreatment, or violence by those abusing corporate or government power. Al, welcome back to Newsmakers.
Glad to be here.
You have started out in the 2 cases that are cited in Larry's report there, focusing on these very specific documents, death certificate, birth certificate, and arguing about whose name can be recognized there. Why start so small? Why not just go after the big issue, which is equal rights for gays and lesbians?
We started that way because we are in the middle of the country. People don't always see the big picture right away in this part of the world. And when I read the Windsor case, which is the source of this new round of litigation, it was actually small. It said, okay, federal government, now that states do have marriage, at that time there was something like 9, you've always recognized the marriages from the states that say this is a valid marriage. For the first time, Congress passed DOMA, which said the federal government can refuse to recognize same-sex marriages, and the U.S. Supreme Court said, no, you can't start now and fail to recognize same-sex marriage. It was a recognition case, and it said if the state says it's legal, you got to say it's legal. And we thought, let's do that for Ohio. Let's stay firmly in the shadow of Windsor and make it just a recognition case, and then let's make it something here and now. I mean, when John and James came to us and said, this is our situation, it was very clear that in a couple of months, John would die, and the most important document that says this is a couple in our civil society, the death certificate at the end of life, was going to be wrong. So why not start there? Because they needed it, and it's a great place to make this all real.
I'm not saying that this is the way they would have seen this, but in some sense you could say the death certificate is symbolic because one person is dead. In this case, this most recent case, it involves not only the two people who are living, but it involves children. And some people would say, oh my gosh, now we've got children involved in this, and that's wrong.
And actually, now we have children involved in this, and that's even more exciting and important, because the birth certificate is the primary identity document for the rest of your life. Shouldn't that be right? Shouldn't that be accurate? And the birth certificate's not a medical record. It's a legal document. It says, these are my parents. One of them's missing unless we get this fixed.
It can be true also with an adoption, a birth certificate in an adoption situation. You put the adoptee, the adopting parents' parents on that. You go back and change the birth certificate.
That's correct, and two of our clients are a couple that adopted in New York. They have a New York adoption decree. The decree says, this is your child, you are the parents. New York sent that decree to Ohio, said, please provide an amended birth certificate, as you just suggested, and Ohio said no. We'll only put one of these two recognized adoptive parents on the birth certificate, so they're suing as well.
So,
and they'll get relief.
On this most recent case, on the birth certificate case, am I correct in saying some of the things that came out after it, as well as what's in the documents, that this, for the moment, applies to these four couples?
The
and
opinion,
not universally.
The opinion was a facial ruling. It said, for all purposes, gay and lesbian and bisexual marriages, same-sex marriages have to be recognized for all purposes in Ohio. Then the judge said, but I'm not going to order implementation of this ruling until it's affirmed on the Sixth Circuit, except for these four couples. So yes, we are talking to the state now and making sure they get the birth certificates. The rest of the ruling will have to wait until the Court of Appeals decides.
So, does it automatically go up to the Court of Appeals, or do you take it up? Do you have to make an official appeal of that? I mean, whose hands is it in to keep this thing moving?
It's the state's move, and they will be filing an appeal very shortly.
The Attorney General made it
That's
clear
correct.
that they would. Is that his option, or is that his responsibility as the Attorney General?
It's his option. He's the top legal officer for the state. And at least 8 other attorney generals and the U.S. Attorney General all have said when they studied the issue, this really is unconstitutional. I shouldn't stand here and try to defend it. So they've stepped aside and refused to continue the legal battle. But apparently our Attorney General doesn't feel that way, which is unfortunate. You know, our Constitution came into being as an imperfect document. We didn't recognize women to vote. We didn't recognize blacks at all. You had to be 3/5 of a person to be counted. We've been fixing the Constitution all along. And our Bill of Rights are our basic statement of our core principles. And when we pass a law like the Ohio constitutional amendment that refuses to recognize same-sex marriages, it's so wrong that the Attorney General shouldn't defend it.
So what is the relationship from a legal point of view? There's the federal Constitution. There are 50 states. They all have constitutions. In this particular case, it wasn't just a law passed by the legislature. It was the people going to the polls and adopting an amendment to the Ohio Constitution. Why does that why isn't there a local option? Why doesn't public opinion in this particular situation, or situations like it, why doesn't it count? Why doesn't it trump the federal Constitution?
Because the federal Constitution has a supremacy clause that says federal law stands supreme, and we have a three-branch system of government, and the judiciary is the ultimate arbiter of the Constitution. So if the U.S. Supreme Court says this is what your core principle is, everyone must follow it, whether that's passed by a group of people in a city, in a state, no matter.
Given the fact that this is going to continue in Ohio, presumably because of the Attorney General appealing, but in other states where similar processes are taking place, is this ultimately going to have to be decided by the U.S. Supreme Court? Is that where this all is headed ultimately?
Maybe. I mean, what's really remarkable, Dan, is that 10 different federal district courts have looked at this since Windsor. They're unanimous.
They're unanimous.
They all say that same-sex marriage should be recognized. Same-sex marriage should be allowed. And those are Democratic-appointed judges. Those are many Republican-appointed judges. If this continues on a path where the rulings are unanimous, the Supreme Court may choose not to get involved.
Because the Supreme Court normally only steps in when there's disagreement on the appeals court level, when different appeals courts have ruled differently, and therefore there's a conflict as to what the law is.
That's correct. But to be fair, I think that we'd have to have rulings from every circuit court in the end before this.
You said that we have 10 rulings so far?
We have 10 district court rulings.
Oh, district court rulings,
but
not appeals courts.
Yes, we have 11 appeals courts in the country, and we'd probably have to get rulings from every one of those. So it's likely that this will go to the U.S. Supreme Court at some point.
Okay, so this particular case getting appealed by the state's Attorney General to the next level up in the federal court system, what's next for you?
Well, we have district court rulings in Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Michigan. Those are all the states in the Sixth Circuit. So we expect that the Sixth Circuit will be taking up this issue across the board for recognition and right to marry very soon. And we all have briefing schedules, and I would expect in the next few months that we'll be arguing these appeals.
What about initiating another line of argument? I mean, there's death certificates, birth certificates. Can you imagine, introducing another type of case that raises similar questions but on a different path? Because frequently, when you get, the higher up you get, the more courts are going to want to be selective about what they rule on and find the right thing that they want to rule on.
Well, and that's part of the reason we have broken this up into different types of issues. Within a couple weeks, my partner Jennifer Branch will be bringing a lawsuit on behalf of people who are not married in Ohio but want to be married, same-sex couples. And along with Lisa Meeks, she'll be bringing that lawsuit, and that'll add yet another option for us to all consider as we work toward full marriage equality.
What's the role? What's the role of the legislature? What's the role of the executive branch? What's the role of the other branches of government at the moment? Is it in Ohio? I mean, I don't know what response. One of the things that a member of the Ohio General Assembly said they wanted to impeach Judge Black, a federal judge. Is that an option, or do they have other options?
That is not an option. Federal judges are appointed for life by the president, and their appointments are confirmed by the U.S. Senate. State legislatures have no role in their tenure in office for this very reason, because they have to make tough decisions. They will make people angry, and they are insulated from the day-to-day hubbub and criticism of local legislators. But the role of the legislature and the executive branch are to pass and enforce laws in a fair and equal manner. They aren't doing it with respect to same-sex couples. In this state, if you are a same-sex couple and you are married, you are entitled to be at the bedside of your loved one when they're going through a difficult medical situation. You're entitled to inherit. You're entitled to have full access to everything involving the children so that your parenting is just as recognized as the others. You also have a duty to pay child support and to do all the things parents do. Ohio should get out of the way and let these couples be the couples they are, the married couples they are, and treat them just like opposite-sex couples.
One last question. Are there other cases in other places in Ohio parallel to this that are also happening? Or is Cincinnati, are you pushing this?
Our federal court here in Cincinnati is the only one that has hosted cases that are moving through the federal system in Ohio right now.
Thanks for being here, Al, and it's always
see you.
Interesting. The cases you're involved, which is one of the great things about your practice. You're interested in these constitutional issues, which are, no matter where you stand on the issue, they're interesting, intriguing, and important to deal with.
Well, it's a great place to practice. Thank you.
Stay tuned. After the break, we'll turn to a different sort of approach to fighting. I don't know why I wrote that.
Don't miss a new Good Wife. Tonight, only CBS.
Welcome back. For 40 years, since 1973, Women Helping Women has provided crisis intervention and support services for survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence, and stalking. The agency provides advocacy, support, and options for safety, as well as educational experiences designed to create social change. The statistics surrounding sexual assault are staggering. 1 in 6 women in the United States is sexually assaulted sometime in their lifetime. Approximately 73% of rape survivors knew their assailant, and 6 out of 10 sexual assaults take place in the victim's home or the home of a friend, a relative, or a neighbor. 60% of all rapes go unreported. To discuss the work of Women Helping Women today, I am joined by Kendall Fisher, the Executive Director. Ms. Fisher has been the executive director for the last 6 years. She also worked as the associate director for 5 years in the late 1990s and early 2000s. And Cindy Combs, a member of the Board of Trustees of Women Helping Women. Ms. Combs is a retired assistant police chief in the city of Cincinnati, the highest ranking woman in the history of the department, and was my guest for an entire half hour just before you retired.
Yes, it was about this time 2 years ago.
Which was a great chance just to really talk about that. Kendall, 40 years of this work, how has not so much the agency changed? I mean, obviously that's changed a lot. But how much has the work changed in that 40 years?
You know, it's changed a lot in some ways, and it's changed very little in others. Probably one of the greatest accomplishments is that people are more aware of these issues. People are speaking about the issues now, so I believe that more survivors are aware of the resources that are available. People are more likely to share information about it, where 40 years ago, no one was talking about these issues at all. They were happening at the same rate. No one was talking, and there weren't resources available.
They were happening at the same rate. You believe that this has been fairly consistent in terms of what is happening, not it hasn't gone down, which would be nice.
No, that's our ultimate goal, is to make it go away entirely and put ourselves out of business. But no, we believe that this has been happening at pretty consistent rates over the decades: domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking.
Cindy, as a board member, first off, why are you a board member? And secondly, how do you think I mean, one of the longest running TV shows is the SVU show set in New York, focusing on victims and families involved with these kinds of cases. How does that impact people's ability to understand what Women Helping Women does, or does it cloud what Women Helping Women does?
Well, I came on the board because I was very involved in working with Women Helping Women during my career with the Cincinnati Police Department. Actually worked with the stalking task force that helped get the stalking laws on the books in the state of Ohio. And I see what a wonderful job they do to help the victims after the incident, and a lot of the great education that they do. You know, unfortunately or fortunately, you know, shows shows like SVU bring to the forefront, you know, the issue. But like so many television shows, they're not always portrayed realistically. You know, a lot of times people have an expectation because things get solved in an hour, you know, or you know, attitudes, you know, are different than they can be portrayed on television. And so, you know, I think it's great that they spotlight the problem of sexual assault, but sometimes, you know, it can create some unrealistic expectations as well.
On a real practical basis, what are some of the things that your staff does for people who have been either sexually assaulted or maybe are victims of being stalked at the moment? Domestic violence sort of falls in, I know that's another area, but there's other conversations going on in the community about that. But sexual assault and stalking.
One is just being available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to people, you know, a confidential, safe place that they can call and get information.
And we're going to give that 24-hour
fabulous
line.
Thank you. Because they're not issues that most people are comfortable going to their family about first, or friends, or somebody at work. We do an enormous amount of personalized safety planning with survivors of these types of crimes, working with them on whether they choose to go to the police or go to the hospital or report the crime, how they can be safe in their everyday, you know.
So you don't tell people what to do once an incident has taken place?
Never. You know, these are crimes where people have had their ability to make decisions about their life, their body taken away from them. So it's really important to us to return control to them. So what we do is help them understand what their options are. You know, if I choose this option, what might happen next? And then let them make the decision that's going to be best for them after they're fully informed of what's out there. And then whatever decision they make, will be there with them all along the way.
What's the relationship from a police officer's point of view to women helping women? How do you think the police look at women helping women? Because they're not necessarily immediately referring everything to the police.
No. But the issue is, quite frankly, it changed a lot over the 30-some years I was in law enforcement, and to the point that we actually have advocates that work side by side with the Cincinnati Police every day and with the prosecutor's office. And to me, I think there's a much better relationship. They're more a resource for us. We provide them with information, and they're the ones who help the victims through the process. You know, it's very, you know, labor intensive and time consuming for an investigator to handle these cases. And really and truly, these victims need a lot of care and attention. And so to have someone who can go and be at the hospital with them during a rape exam, to be able to walk with them through the whole court process and the court system, you know, those are things that, you know, we're very focused on: making arrests, processing evidence, you know, getting the facts. And we're not always great at taking care of the victims the way that they deserve. And for us, it is such a great value to be able to have someone like Women Helping Women there to be there for the victims.
So you have staff, but you also have volunteers, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Who will help people work through this whole process?
Yeah, we were founded as a volunteer organization initially, and under that kind of feminist belief that community members can and should support each other, and we still believe very strongly in that. We have over 120 volunteers who work with us to help support victims. We don't have enough staff to be everywhere all the time, so.
Including being in court
Including going to court, yes, including going to the hospital at 2 o'clock in the morning, including co-facilitating support groups, answering the hotline.
I know this is the 40th anniversary.
Yeah.
And one of your big events is Light Up the Night.
Yes.
And that's been going on for a long time. I don't know, has that been going on for 40 years?
Probably decades, probably not all 40 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we go back that far with this event.
And when's that coming up next?
It's coming up on May 1st, Thursday, May 1st. It starts at 6 o'clock in the evening at Elements Conference and Event Center up in Sharonville. I mean, it's a fabulous evening. Cindy's on the event planning committee and has done a lot of great work towards that.
Mm-hmm. So, and what's the point of something like that? Why do you do public events like that? Why do you do, you know, and it's a fundraiser partly, but it's more than that. You're trying to raise people's consciousness too.
Raise people's awareness, their conscious, and get people involved. To get people, find a fun way to get people involved in the issue. A lot of people care about the issue and want to help, but they think, oh, I could never, you know, talk to a survivor. I could never go to the hospital at 3 in the morning. Anyone can come to Light Up the Night, have a wonderful evening, and be helping.
How many, we're almost out of time, how many people are volunteers, either at the board level or down in that helping people?
If you include all of our volunteers, we're probably just shy of 200 volunteers today.
I want to make sure people know how to find out about this. A 40th anniversary party, Light Up the Night, flashback to the 70s. Yes. I remember them.
Break out your polyester.
Is the organization's major fundraiser. It'll be held May 1st at Elements Conference Center on Lebanon Road. For information, check out the website. For the 24-hour hotline, this is if you need to call, 513-381-5610, and the website is www.womenhelpingwomen.org. So, you know, lots of opportunities there. Thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for making Newsmakers part of your Sunday morning.